Quaker Oats threw away $1.4 billion instantly. And the craziest part? They did it by trying to sell quirky iced tea like corporate sports drinks. This is the story of how one of the most successful food conglomerates in American history executed what Wall Street now calls the worst acquisition of all time. To understand how a giant corporate powerhouse managed to vaporize nearly $2 billion of shareholder value in just over 2 years, we have to travel back to the early 1990s. This was an era when the beverage industry was undergoing a massive cultural shift. Carbonated sodas were losing their absolute chokehold on the American consumer. People wanted something healthier, or at least, something that felt healthier. Enter Snapple. Snapple started from incredibly humble beginnings. It was founded in 1972 in Brooklyn, New York, by 3 partners, Leonard Marsh, Hyman Golden, and Arnold Greenberg. Originally called unadulterated food products, they sold pure fruit juices to health food stores. But in the 1980s, they stumbled upon a goldmine: iced tea. At the time, iced tea was mostly sold as a powdered mix or in low-quality cans filled with preservatives. Snapple revolutionized the category. They used a process called hot fill, which meant they could bottle the tea without preservatives, sealing it in premium glass bottles that made a satisfying pop when opened. It felt premium, natural, and authentic. But what truly made Snapple a cultural phenomenon wasn't just the liquid inside the bottle. It was the brand's bizarre, quirky, and fiercely independent personality. Snapple didn't run polished, multi-million-dollar television commercials featuring supermodels or famous athletes. Instead, they hired Wendy Kaufman, an actual Snapple employee who worked in the order department. Wendy was loud, friendly, and uniquely New York. She became Wendy the Snapple Lady, answering real fan letters on television. Snapple also sponsored counterculture radio icons like Howard Stern and Rush Limbaugh. They embraced their quirky image, and consumers absolutely loved them for it. By 1993, Snapple was growing at a staggering triple-digit rate, reaching hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. They were the undisputed darlings of the beverage world. Meanwhile, in Chicago, the executives at Quaker Oats were watching Snapple's explosive growth with immense envy. Quaker Oats was a corporate giant, best known for oatmeal, but they also possessed a crown jewel in their portfolio: Gatorade. Quaker had acquired Gatorade in 1983 for a modest $220 million. Through aggressive, highly structured corporate distribution and massive marketing campaigns, Quaker transformed Gatorade into a multi-billion-dollar empire that controlled over 80% of the sports drink market. Quaker's CEO, William Smithburg, was hailed as a corporate genius. He believed he had cracked the code of the beverage industry. He believed that any drink, no matter how niche, could be scaled to global dominance using the exact same playbook they used for Gatorade. Smithburg looked at Snapple and saw a golden opportunity. If Quaker could acquire Snapple, they could combine it with Gatorade to create a massive alternative beverage powerhouse. They could dominate supermarkets, convenience stores, and vending machines across the globe. In November of 1994, Quaker Oats made its move. They bypassed standard corporate diligence, ignored the warning signs from Wall Street, and agreed to buy Snapple for a staggering $1.7 billion. Analysts were instantly horrified. Many pointed out that Quaker was overpaying by at least several $100 million. But William Smithburg was arrogant. He publicly boasted about the immense synergies between Gatorade and Snapple. He believed his corporate machine could easily double Snapple's sales within a few years. But wait. It gets worse. From the very moment the ink dried on the contract, the culture clash between Quaker's suit-and-tie executives and Snapple's quirky, entrepreneurial spirit became a recipe for absolute disaster. Quaker's management team arrived at Snapple's headquarters armed with spreadsheets, focus groups, and MBA textbooks. They looked at Snapple's chaotic, decentralized operations and decided it needed to be standardized. This was their fatal mistake. The first thing Quaker's executives attacked was Snapple's unique distribution network. Gatorade was sold primarily to massive supermarket chains and wholesale warehouses through huge, centralized distribution networks. Snapple, however, had been built on what was known as the cold bottle channel. Snapple was sold in corner delis, gas stations, independent convenience stores, and school cafeterias. This network was run by a highly loyal, independent army of distributors who physically wheeled handcarts of Snapple into small shops every single day. Quaker decided this system was highly inefficient. They attempted to force Snapple into their centralized Gatorade distribution system. They tried to bypass the independent distributors and sell directly to major grocery chains. This decision instantly alienated the very distributors who had built the brand. Incensed by Quaker's heavy-handed tactics, these distributors stopped pushing Snapple. They stopped giving it prime shelf space. Some even began promoting rival up-and-coming brands like Arizona iced tea. Almost overnight, Snapple lost its presence in the corner delis and gas stations that accounted for the majority of its sales. Having destroyed the distribution system, Quaker's corporate executives turned their attention to the marketing. They found Snapple's quirky advertisements to be amateurish and highly unscientific. They wanted professional, polished campaigns. So, they fired Wendy the Snapple Lady. They severed ties with Howard Stern, fearing his controversial radio persona would tarnish Quaker's wholesome, family-friendly brand image. They replaced the charming, fan-driven commercials with clinical, focus group-tested advertisements. One infamous campaign featured a giant, CGI-animated Snapple bottle running through a stadium. It felt artificial, corporate, and completely soulless. The loyal fanbase immediately sensed the change. Snapple was no longer the cool, indie beverage of the people. It had become just another corporate product pushed by a giant conglomerate. To make matters worse, Quaker made massive blunders with the product itself. In their pursuit of supermarket dominance, they decided that Snapple needed to be sold in larger, cheaper formats. They introduced 32-ounce plastic bottles and 12-pack aluminum cans. This was a catastrophic misunderstanding of the consumer. Part of the magic of Snapple was the tactile experience of the glass bottle. Drinking Snapple from a can or a cheap plastic bottle completely stripped away its premium feel. It made the product look cheap, yet Quaker kept the price high. While Quaker was busy stripping the soul out of Snapple, the competition smelled blood in the water. Coca-Cola, realizing that Quaker was struggling, launched a direct competitor called Fruitopia with a massive multi-million-dollar marketing campaign. PepsiCo partnered with Lipton to flood the market with cheap, mass-produced iced teas. Arizona iced tea began offering larger, 24-ounce cans for just 99 cents, severely undercutting Snapple's premium pricing. Snapple's sales did not double. Instead, they went into a terrifying, uncontrollable freefall. In 1995, Snapple lost millions of cases in sales volume. By 1996, the brand was losing hundreds of millions of dollars. Quaker Oats' stock price was severely battered, and shareholders were openly revolting against CEO William Smithburg. The corporate giant was bleeding from a self-inflicted wound, and there was no end in sight. By early 1997, the situation had become completely untenable. Quaker's board of directors realized that if they did not get rid of Snapple, the brand would drag the entire corporation under. The climax of this tragedy was swift and brutal. Quaker put Snapple up for sale. There were no bidding wars. The brand was seen as toxic. Finally, in March of 1997, just 27 months after purchasing Snapple for $1.7 billion, Quaker Oats sold the brand to Triarch Companies, an investment firm led by Nelson Peltz. The sale price? A pathetic $300 million. Quaker Oats had lost $1.4 billion in 27 months. To put that into perspective, Quaker lost over $1.7 million every single day they owned the brand. It remains one of the fastest and most staggering destructions of brand value in corporate history. William Smithburg resigned in disgrace shortly after. But the ultimate irony of the Snapple saga was yet to come. Once Triarch took control of Snapple, they did something radical. They fired the corporate consultants, ignored the focus groups, and immediately brought back Wendy the Snapple Lady. They repaired the relationships with the independent distributors. They restored the quirky, fun, and authentic spirit of the brand. Within just 3 years, Triarch turned Snapple around and sold it to Cadbury Schweppes for $1.45 billion. The brand was never broken. The product was never defective. The only failure was the immense, blind hubris of a corporate giant that believed it could apply a rigid corporate playbook to a brand that succeeded precisely because it was nonconformist. If you thought this corporate blunder was unbelievable, you need to watch our video on how Blockbuster rejected a partnership that would have saved them from bankruptcy.